Jonathan, MixRadio, how long have you been associated with it?
Actually, it's interesting. I was at Nokia for 5 years and I helped build the product. And I actually went to Warner Music Group and ran digital strategy and business development there for a couple of years and then rejoined the team about 6 months ago.
Okay. Now MixRadio is a completely separate entity.
Correct.
And so are you mostly looking at this service as a radio service rather than a music service that Savan or maybe Apple Music provides?
I don't think we define ourselves by competitors, so we define ourselves by the consumer need. And so again, what drives the service is the recognition that radio is the most consumed music product on the planet. One. Two, outside of the US, digital radio has really been slow to evolve. And so we recognize an enormous consumer opportunity to deliver on a need. And so we do think of our product as very radio out.
Okay. So coming into India from a place like US which has much better internet service, you must have had a lot of optimizations to do in terms of tracks, the way they are provided, the way they stream. So if you would talk about that.
Sure. So, we've been working in India for 10 years, and as I said earlier, I actually lived here for some time and studied music here. But yes, every market has unique challenges, and in India, broadband data penetration and the ability to actually have access to data plans or the sensitivity around the price of data are key. So we do a couple of things. One, we optimize our file size to make sure that we're delivering a small file to still give you a great audio experience as possible. And those two are very fine balance. And then two is we let you take up to 4 mixes offline so that you can download them over Wi-Fi, you can download them when you're comfortable with the cost of downloading them, and enjoy them whenever you'd like.
So curations in music that MixRadio streams, are a section of it handpicked, or is everything depending on algorithms of what I choose?
So it's a mix. Algorithms are wonderful at delivering, specific recommendations. Yeah. But what they can't do is really tell a story, and so that's where our team of musicologists who are based here really come into play to really, pull things together in a way that that can turn you onto something new, or tell a story through music.
So. How often do these hand curated lists get refreshed?
Constantly. Okay. And so, particularly with some of our new design, there are a huge number of mixes, and they're being updated very frequently. It really depends on the mix, and it depends kind of how popular it is. So I think you'll probably see a more rapid refresh of the most popular mixes.
All right.
But it's a constant process, so the teams are constantly trolling through the mixes.
So do you have hand-curated lists for regional music also?
Yes.
Okay. Talking about getting into Indian music and getting into so many languages.
Yes.
How have people responded to MixRadio so far?
Well, it's really only available for the first time now on Android, so it's a little bit of the beginning of the journey for us.
But for the market study that you already had?
Well, so we've been on Windows Phone, and we've been with Nokia for some time. It's a complex market for a number of reasons, as you said, language, genre. Whereas the taxonomies in Europe and the US tend to be more around things like genre and artist, you do see more things that are kind of film-led. So it's really, fortunately, over the last several years, has forced us to really think about how we structure our entire catalog and structure our metadata. And now we're finding that really pays off, because that is what enables our algorithm to be able to pick the right track from the catalog and get it in front of the right consumer.
Right. Also, there are so many films coming in, and India being so film-centric,
yes.
Film music albums play a huge role. Do they get mixed with the radio curations too?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's film music, there's Carnatic music, there's Punjab music, there's everything.
Right. So MixRadio being the radio service, how much of a freedom does a user get to choose? Maybe how much do I get as my personal freedom to choose the music?
So you can select an artist and generate a mix that's based on that. We can spin up a mix based on your taste profile, and you can obviously select one of our mixes. This is not an on-demand service. It's a highly personal radio service. So that's not the experience we're trying to deliver. But I think the really important thing, and what we see behaviorally as we operated a number of different models, is that in a world of infinite choice, it can be crushing to know what to listen to. And so this is a really novel approach to solving that problem. So as opposed to presenting you with a giant search bar, what we do is really try and understand your musical taste and who you are and put the right thing in front of you. And that's a much different challenge and a much different way of solving the problem for consumers.
Going slightly into the business model and marketing, how are you planning to promote MixRadio in the coming months, since it's been launched now for Android?
So you're going to see a really organic approach. So we're very, very committed to marketing the brand and in partnership, obviously, with Samsung. But I think what's really critical for us is that we want to make sure that the activations we do are very meaningful. So I think a lot less of putting giant billboards up next to concert stages and a lot more of real on-the-ground organic activation.
Okay. So that's how the MixRadio is being promoted as of now. What about iOS? Are you focusing on iOS right now, or would that come later?
Sure. I mean, we have an iOS app available. It's beautiful. It works wonderfully. iOS is not as large a platform here in India, but it doesn't make it any less important to our product portfolio here and globally.
Right. Okay. MixRadio, in terms of the app design, so are there? Do you guys have any specific optimizations in mind when you design the application on your Android platform?
So it's actually a very interesting question because we've just gone through a big UI refresh for Android. And really, in very close collaboration with Line, we've really listened to kind of consumers. We've watched how they're using the app, and we really have tried to bring that to bear in the new design, and I think you'll see us continually do that. I mean, we run an agile business, we run an agile development team, and so we're constantly trying to understand how to get the right product in front of the consumer. So, yes.
Is there UI personalization in MixRadio right now? Like if I want to change the way the app looks?
No.
Not right.
Well, except that the mixes that are surfaced to you are mixes that match your taste profile. So the actual UI, the skin of the UI doesn't change. But for example, my view of the home screen will be very different than your view of it.
From mine, yeah. So MixRadio right now is a completely free service.
Correct.
There's no pay model.
Correct.
And so your mode of revenue would possibly rely only on advertisements?
Correct.
What other ways are you looking for in terms of generating revenue?
So for now, it's an ad-supported model, and we haven't made any announcements, but I think it's very likely in short order that we will launch premium tiers of service as well.
All right. How many languages is MixRadio available already?
Globally or in India?
In India?
I believe it's 13.
13 languages. 13 Indian languages.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And do you guys have any specific artist tie-ups with MixRadio?
We work with lots of artists all the time, and we look to make those as meaningful propositions as possible.
Okay.
So nothing specific.
Nothing specific, right. What for MixRadio's future in maybe the next 5 months or so? We already have it on Samsung.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I think now is where the execution begins. I mean, it's always fun to show up at an announcement and a party, and but now is when the real work begins, and that's exciting and challenging. So this is about getting it right for consumers. I think it's about really keenly listening. It's about executing against our plan. It's about getting the marketing out, and it's about really starting to see what happens when it gets into the hands of Indian consumers, how they respond. And that's, again, the announcements are fun, but that's where the real work starts.
So I just have one specific last question.
Sure.
So, in fact, there's one of my colleagues just pinged me on this. So we have services like, say, Apple Music, which would give me curated music, a curated music feed, as well as my freedom to choose albums or specific tracks. So I think even Saavn does that on a free model, maybe on a limited basis or something. So for a user like him, what would urge him to use MixRadio?
So I won't compare myself to competitors, but we're language localized, and I don't think that all of the other partners that you just named can say that. It's free to consumer, so some of the things you just talked about, I don't believe are free to consumers. But again, this is about being a not driven by our competitor business, but of the consumer ad business. So I think you have to remember, radio is, again, the most consumed medium on the planet. So I'm not as concerned about what Savin or any other partner is doing. I'm concerned about getting the experience right for our customers.